often we hear about legends, myths or curses born from anger or hate, where a spirit is out for revenge on those who cross its path. But sometimes, spirits are born out of loss, the loss of a loved one, a sacrifice of a lover that creates a spirit in search of what it's lost, and sometimes that search ends with the deaths of innocent travelers. Welcome to Myth, Mysteries, and Monsters. The world is full of myth, passed down from generation to generation. Mysteries haunt us, monsters hunt us. Today we're looking at a location given an ominous name because of the deaths that surround its history, but the legends tell of a forbidden love that led to a curse. Today we're looking at the Devil's Pool in Queensland, Australia. Part 1. Lovers and Legends. The course of true love never did run smooth. William Shakespeare. The Yindinji are a group of aboriginal Australian people living in far north Queensland, where once they were one of the largest tribes in the country. Today they are nearly extinct, living on the fringes of the coastal areas. What has lived on throughout the thousands of years is their deep culture and spiritual beliefs describing their existence, often referred to as Dreamtime, a place where their ancestral spirits built and created the world around them. The stories told in Dreamtime are meant to pass on knowledge, traditions, and laws to future generations. One story tells of a beautiful young woman named Ulana and her forbidden love. When Ulana was born, her hand in marriage was promised to a highly respected tribal elder named Rauno. The day of their marriage was meant to be a joyous occasion, where the tribe would dance in celebration for the newlyweds. Though it started off that way, a passing tribe would bring a handsome young warrior named Digga into their lives. Ulana and Digga were in love at first sight, but they both knew it was forbidden. Ulana was now married to Rauno, and the love she had for Digga could only exist as a crime. Yet they carried on with the affair, deciding to risk their entire livelihood for each other. Their only option was to flee their tribes and promise to start anew, out in the wilderness. It didn't take long for Rauno to notice his wife was missing. As an elder in the tribe, he held tremendous power and ordered much of the tribe to track down the two lovers. With everyone on their tail, it didn't take long for them to be found, and Ulana watched the group drag Digga away to an uncertain fate. Tormented by what may happen to him, she broke free of her captors and ran off. Coming to the edge of what is now known as the Babinda Boulders, she could hear the group approaching. Looking down at the pool of water below the rocks, she thought about a life without Digga, a life without her one true love, a life she wouldn't want to live. Ulana jumped, crying out for Digga to follow her down into the watery depths. Her powerful cry shook the land. The once still waters became a rushing torrent. Huge boulders came tumbling down from the mountains, scattering around the creek. When the sounds of the crashing boulders and shaking land ceased, so did Ulana's cries. Her body was never found. For years after, any of the men from the Yindinji tribe would become sick or died if they ventured near the waters. Many claimed to see the spirit of Ulana in the water, and even witnessed her hands reach up and pull the others down. Her spirit is said to guard the waters at Babinda Boulders. Known many as the Devil's Pool, she waits for Digga to join her in the watery depths below. Part 2. The Curse. There is a ghost here, a lonely, heartbroken spirit, the ghost of everything that could have been, and never was. Jennifer Donnelly, from the Tea Rose. Today the place where Ulana met her end is located in a perilous portion of Babinda Creek, in the Boulders Scenic Reserve. The beauty of the reserve makes it a popular public recreation spot, where many come to enjoy the scenery and take a swim in the waters. But straying away from the main swimming hole will lead you down a narrow creek filled with massive boulders and, some say, the spirit of Ulana. Many claim to still be able to hear Ulana's cries if you just listen close enough, while others claim to catch brief glimpses of a woman under the water before she disappears. But when people, specifically men, began dying at the creek, it gained a new name: the Devil's Pool. Many articles and news reports state that many deaths have occurred since 1959, but it appears the deaths began even prior to that. An article from Saturday, June 10, 1933 reported on the search for a Mr. T. Winterbottom, who had been swept into the waters a week prior. Those leading the search believed his body may not be found for some time, as it may have been lodged in a crevice or in one of the caves that are beneath the water. The article refers to the creek as the Devil's Pool, telling us it has already built a reputation for death, and will be one that wouldn't go away. Several years later, on November 18, 1940, an article reports an 8-year-old boy had been found in the Devil's Pool. The curse at Devil's Pool seemed to target only men, but also those that disrespect the area. In one story, After a plaque had been placed at the creek commemorating those who have died, a male traveler kicked the wet plaque. He then slipped and fell into the waters, drowning. Is it truly possible the spirit of Ulana is watching over the land and takes men, believing them to be her long-lost love, Digga? In another tragic event, a couple stood together on the rocky platform, taking in the beautiful views surrounding the Devil's Pool. When a witness states, the water suddenly rose, sweeping the couple into the water. After a struggle with the rushing currents, the girlfriend survived, but her boyfriend was lost to the pool. Legend says anyone who Ulana takes has their spirit trapped in the water, as hers is. In one article from the Brisbane Times, the father of a victim reports having taken pictures of the location where his son's body was previously found. After having the pictures developed, his son's face could supposedly be seen just below the surface of the water. A local police officer attested to seeing the face in the picture. Another report, from November 2009, supposedly shows the face of what appears to be an aboriginal woman just below the surface of the water. Many believe this to be Ulana. I should note that although I found the original links to the articles, both appear to be dead links, and no amount of searching led me to the actual pictures. In one of the more recent deaths at the Devil's Pool, on November 30th, 2008, James Andrew Bennett and 3 of his friends spotted several unaccompanied children swimming around the Devil's Pool. Believing this meant the water was safe, the 4 climbed over the safety railings, ignoring the sign telling them many have died. They then walked along the granite rocks near the water. One of James' friends claimed it looked like someone had tugged at James from behind, then pulled him backwards into the water. As James fell, he reached out grabbing a tree branch that snapped almost immediately. His friends attempted to reach out, but only his hands were visible for a short time before they disappeared into the waters. His body was found 3 days later. After the death of James Andrew Bennett, the local authorities decided to declare the area a no-go zone, preventing all from swimming in the treacherous waters. But unfortunately, this has not stopped the deaths. Just last year, in April of 2020, 18-year-old Madison Tam drowned after being sucked into the water. Then, in October of 2020, 37-year-old Shannon Hoffman drowned in the water. His body was found several days later. Madison Tam was only the second woman to ever drown in the Devil's Pool. Since 1933, there have been at least 21 deaths. But many who don't believe in the ancient legend believe there's a logical explanation for them all. Part 3. The real dangers. Ocean is more ancient than the mountains, and freighted with the memories and the dreams of time. H.P. Lovecraft. It's not news for anyone to say that the ocean can be a dangerous place. No matter how entrancing the surrounding landscape may be, or how tranquil the water may appear beneath the surface, you might find dangers, and not the spirit type. All around the world, there are deceptively dangerous flowing rivers, creeks, and ponds. In fact, some even share the same name with the Devil's Pool in Australia. In southern Africa, you'll find Victoria Falls, one of the largest waterfalls in the world. Near the edge of the waterfall, during low currents, you're able to reach an area nicknamed the Devil's Pool. Here, the rocks have formed a sort of lip under the water and created a natural infinity pool. People are allowed to swim over to the edge and look down the waterfall, without fear of the current forcing them 108 meters or 355 feet down to the bottom. Surprisingly, there have only been 2 recorded deaths since the tours in the Devil's Pool in Victoria Falls began, both of which did not occur during an official tour. One man was an unapproved guide, while the other was a tourist who slipped on the rocks while taking pictures. In Pennsylvania, another Devil's Pool exists, although this one has a lot less death than that of Australia. The Devil's Pool in Pennsylvania seems to have not even experienced any accidental deaths. An infamous case in 2013, where a father and son drowned, was reported to have occurred in Devil's Pool, but actually occurred in another area near the pool. Archivists believe the name was given to the area due to an old urban legend of a Native American tribe who considered the pool to be an interface between good and evil. Today, the Devil's Pool in Pennsylvania faces a much bigger problem: littering. As more and more people flock to the area, more and more people are leaving behind garbage and filth. The difference between these pools and the Devil's Pool in Australia appears to be what's beneath the water. And I don't mean the ancient spirit of a heartbroken member of the Yidinji tribe. As mentioned before, below the surface of the Devil's Pool in Australia, you'll find water chutes, multiple caves, and most importantly, rushing water. Many are deceived by the serene view, but currents have proven to be dangerous time and time again. The water levels at the Devil's Pool have been known to rise dramatically and suddenly, catching tourists and locals off guard. This occurs due to the storms from miles up rushing water into the creek below. Cabinda is also known as one of the cities in Australia that gets the most rainfall. Some locals even refer to the Devil's Pool or pieces of it as the washing machine. Because of how the water and currents toss you around once it has its grips on you. Some areas of the pool reach depths of 8 meters or 26 feet, and when the currents have their hold on you, they can force you down and possibly wedge you between rocks. In one of the 21 deaths, a man's body could not be located for 6 weeks because of the currents, and in another, a man's leg had to be amputated to release his body from the wedge where the water had pinned him. And it's not just the water that's dangerous. The surrounding rocks have been rubbed smooth from the years of flowing water and are now slippery and cause many accidents. Many, if not most, of the deaths at the Devil's Pool are attributed first from slipping on the rocks and falling backwards into the water. In the end, regardless if you believe the spirit of Ulana is waiting and searching for more victims to bring to the watery depths below, or if you recognize the geographical dangers that exist below the waters, don't swim in the Devil's Pool. Those that did risked the lives of rescue teams that were then sent in to search for them. Designated swimming areas in the creek exist and should be used, or else you'll end up as another victim of the Devil's Pool. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Myths, Mysteries, and Monsters. My name is Hector. Script and research is done by E.L Soto. Sources are in the show notes for further reading. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating, a review, or subscribe for more. And remember, always look behind you.